Hi, and welcome back to the Drama-Free Healthy Living podcast. I'm your host, Jess Cording. I am so excited you're joining me today. This episode, we are talking all about non-alcoholic beverages and what it's like to develop an NA drink and the experience from idea to getting funding to getting it out there and working with partners in the space. And I love having founders on the show. I love an origin story, as you know. I also love a good peek behind the curtain. I'm all about the behind the scenes. So this episode does not disappoint. I'm speaking today with George Youmans, co-founder of HiYo, a non-alcoholic functional beverages that features some of my favorite adaptogens. So we're going to talk all about the experience of developing a product like that, taking it from, an idea and where that came from, to an actual product that's out there on the market and what it's been like to develop that and grow this business. So while we do talk a lot about the practical stuff, we also get into the heart and soul of developing something like this. And, we talk practical things and, we talk about trends and developing flavors, but we also go pretty deep and talk about things like the value of creating, whether it is creating a product or a service or creating just to express and feel something. So I really hope that you guys love this episode. I had a blast recording it. So without further ado, let's get to it. Welcome to Drama-Free Healthy Living with Jess Cording. I'm your host, Jess Cording. I'm a registered dietitian, health coach, and author, and I'm here to help you streamline your wellness routine and establish a sane, more balanced relationship with food and fitness so you can reach your goals without losing your mind. On this podcast, we'll talk about nutrition, exercise, self-care, mindset, and more. I'll be bringing you interviews and expert insight on the topics that matter to your health and wellness. George, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thanks so much for having me on. Can't wait to chat with you.
I really appreciate you making time to speak with me today. I was super excited to find out about HiYo just because I've, in the past years, I would say the past 4 or 5 years, I've become increasingly interested in non-alcoholic beverage options that I can share with my clients and introduce into my own life. And I was really excited to learn about you guys. So I was hoping, could you tell us a little bit about the company and how it all got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So HiYo is a stress relieving, mood boosting social tonic. So what that means is really a beverage to be enjoyed in those similar occasions to when you might have an alcoholic beverage, kind of those post 5 p.m. unwinding moments. But HiYo delivers that feeling, that stress relief from healthy, functional ingredients. So all organic, 30 calories, and usually kind of fruit forward flavors. So light, refreshing. I'm a little bit biased, pretty delicious. But yeah, that's the product itself. Going way back to the way that we started or the founding story. If you look at everything about the brand, it's this very positive, sun-drenched, kind of aspirational brand, but it frankly came out of one of the worst moments in mine and my co-founder Evan's lives where we both had family members hospitalized with alcohol-related issues back in April 2019. So it was this weird kind of coincidental and frankly kind of traumatic experience that caused us both to cut back our drinking out of solidarity with those family members. And as we did, we saw the pretty profound need for a product like HiYo in our lives and in the lives of those we love. So we were going out on the west side of Los Angeles, where we're from, and we're being the social butterflies that we are. And we were not drinking, and we just saw how difficult it was due to the options that were out there. It was like, I can have a boring soda water and lime. I can have a sugary, syrupy mocktail. And then it's like, well, I'm trying to be healthier. That doesn't make sense. You could have like an energy drink, and then you're staying up all night, and then you're kind of waking up and you're not feeling refreshed. And it's almost like a new version of a hangover. So you're like, what are we doing here? And even like non-alcoholic beer, as someone who doesn't really drink, I appreciate that exists, and that's a great option for me, but that's like beer without the feeling. So it's almost like you're requiring someone who's making a healthier choice to make a little bit of a sacrifice. And we didn't want that to be the case. We wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to drink less, whatever that meant to them. And we thought that we were doing that by creating like an organic beverage that you could be happy with the ingredients that were in there, one that didn't lend itself to abuse and gave you like a similar stress relieving feeling that you usually are looking for from alcohol, I guess, in those occasions, but instead have it come from, you know, the healthy ingredients that we included. So that was really the catalyst. That was the idea behind it. Thankfully, I think we correctly identified that it wasn't just us that were looking to drink less. That's been a pretty sizable, substantial societal focus. And we were also coming out of the pandemic where I think a lot of people overconsumed alcohol during that occasion or during that time period. So it was a good solution for a lot of people as they were trying to prioritize their health a little bit more, drink a little bit less, that type of thing. So we launched maybe 3.5 years ago now. Thankfully, we've been growing like crazy. Now we're on our own website on Amazon and hopefully getting into a lot more retailers and just supermarkets around the country.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. It's so interesting to see, more people make the decision to drink less, whether that's completely stopping alcohol consumption or drinking more. Apologize for the noise in the background. I actually had a really similar experience myself where I found watching relatives really struggle with alcohol and alcoholism and alcohol abuse. That was a big piece of my decision to drink less. But I also found that for my health, I had my first experience with having a breast biopsy when I was 35 and knowing, that was when I could no longer ignore the fact that there is a well-established link between increased risk of breast cancer and alcohol consumption, even moderately. And personally, for me, with my, family history and other stuff, I was like, it also messes up my sleep. It's just not worth it. And my husband, ironically, works in the beverage industry, but is also not a big drinker. And we both kind of, when we first met, we were both kind of over drinking. I think we met in 2019, and I remember like going out with him when we were dating, and it was so refreshing to just spend time together and not have it center around alcohol. It was just, but again, like the options were not great. And I definitely found during the pandemic, I did start drinking a lot less because I was like, well, I'm home. There's not the social pressure. Noticing I felt better without it. And it's been really cool to see the innovation in the category. Like for you guys, was there a moment where you were like, you know what, we should just make our own products? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, it was that moment where we were out on the west side and we were like, we should create something like this. We looked around and there wasn't anything that was like HiYo in what we were trying to do. We wanted it to be an accessible brand. We wanted it to be a accessible flavor profile. We wanted it to be as easy and as like, frankly, something that was appealing to a broad level of people. Like we didn't want to create a brand that was just like for someone on the coasts. We wanted it to be something that appealed to a lot of people, right? Appealed to people across the country. So we knew that we wanted to have like more accessible flavor, like fruit forward flavors. And that proved to be pretty accurate. I think that a lot of people if you look at the most popular beverages out there, most of them are on the sweeter side. We didn't want to make a sugary beverage. Like that didn't make sense to us, but we knew that a lot of people like sweeter flavor profiles. So we just used the fruit juice and a little bit of organic cane sugar because frankly, all the adaptogens and nootropics that we put in there, they don't taste that great. So we had to cover that feeling so people could actually enjoy it. But yeah, I think the idea really came from just a need in our own lives and in our families' lives. Like this would be cool. This would be sweet to create something that people could feel proud of when they're holding it in their hand and they're socializing and they don't feel like other or ostracized because they're not drinking or making that choice to prioritize their health. That was really the inspiration behind it. And, for us, I like to say that I'm an amateur biohacker. I'm definitely not the authority on it, but, I've listened to enough of the books on tape and podcasts about it that I think I know enough to be dangerous and had a working knowledge of a lot of these ingredients. But we worked with a medicinal herbalist out of Venice who is every bit as trendy as she sounds. And we were like, we want to create, the ideal social feeling, right? And she recommended these are the different adaptogens and nootropics that I would put in there. And then we worked with a team of beverage scientists and said, okay, these are the ingredients that we want. We want ashwagandha, L-theanine, lion's mane, lemon balm, passion flower, and ginger in every can of Hyo. We want it to be 30 calories and we want it to be all organic and it has to taste good. And they're like, you guys are the worst, but okay, we'll try. And then we kept iterating on that for probably 12, 13 months. Like it was around a year for sure. And finally got to a place that we were really proud of the beverages and to where I think you can taste them and, you know, you just taste it and you're like, oh, that's a great tasting beverage. Then you turn it around and see that there's all those adaptogens and nootropics in it. And hopefully you feel the effects of that. Like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. And the light bulb goes off. And hopefully it makes it easier for people to drink less.
That was something I mean, again, this is my dietitian nerd brain, but when I saw that there was L-theanine and lion's mane, I was like, all right, this is great. These are my people. Like, I like this. But as you were kind of like testing, was it like, did it take a lot of like figuring out how to make a palatable product using all these different, compounds and such? Or did you feel like it was kind of easeful just having it all come together?
No, it was very difficult because I think you're trying to figure out an effective dose that people are actually feeling those effects, right? You don't want there to be too much so that it's not sessionable. Like, if people are having beers or having glasses of wine, like people want to have multiple in a sitting, right? So we didn't want there to be, hitting your daily value too quickly either. So it was finding that balance. And obviously those like ashwagandha tastes super bitter if you try that. And like lion's mane, it's a mushroom. Like I don't know very many people who are just like, yeah, I would love to get a liquid mushroom flavor. That's not what people are going for. So we had to work pretty tirelessly to figure out what are the different fruit flavors that actually cover these, I guess, these off notes of the functional ingredients to a complete extent so that people aren't experiencing that and they're just getting these like delicious, refreshing beverages. So it was a very iterative process. Sometimes it felt like, we were hitting our head against the wall, but it was usually pretty productive. Like it almost always got better each time. So there was at least some progress. And ultimately when we knew that we had the right blend, so we kept iterating when we were raising our pre-seed round before we had even launched the company, just going to friends and family, asking, knocking down any doors, asking them, hey, are you down to invest in this concept? We're trying to change the way the world drinks. We don't have much, but we've got a dream and we've got the energy to go do this. It was challenging to start with the initial iterations that we had. We probably raised maybe like half of the round with 5 people, but we went to hundreds of people. And then we made this change and ultimately like kicked up the calories up to 30 calories. And when we did that, we batted 1,000. We raised like the rest of the round with the next 5 people that we talked to. And we're like, okay, I think we actually have it now. So that was maybe our light bulb moment that we had something special.
That was actually something I wanted to ask you about, that experience of raising the funds to, because I think sometimes from what I hear from my clients say that they're like, oh, this person had an idea for a beverage and then it was like on the shelf. Like as you were going to investors, potential investors, like was it hard to sell the idea or were people like, yes, I love this. This is a great goal. Like, or did you guys have to like make the case for why this needed to be out there?
I mean, I think that whenever you're creating a new company, like it can matter a lot to you, but it has to matter to the world. And like, you have to prove that there is a large enough total addressable market of people that actually need this. Like, how large is the problem that you're solving? Right. I think that ultimately it usually revolves around that. And then are you the right person to do that? Are you the right person to solve it? And for us, I think it's kind of an easy thing to pitch. Like, no one is more than 1 degree of separation from someone afflicted by overconsumption of alcohol. And then I think also if you go into like an auditorium of people and ask like, all right, if you're being honest, like who wants to drink who thinks they could drink a little bit less? Like damn near every hand is probably getting raised in that. So I think that there's a big desire for that behavior, but the optionality was just lagging significantly, or the supply was lagging significantly behind the demand. So I think the concept was one that a lot of people were open to, but then the product has to hit it. And at least when we started our first iterations, like there was room for improvement and that made it challenging. And I think frankly, anytime that you're creating whether it's a beverage or whether it's any company, the raising process, everything has to line up. Everything like from where that person's mindset is that day. And, it's kind of like everything has to go right in order for them to invest. And I think you just have to be prepared for a lot of no's, and you can't get deterred from the failure, I guess, of that. And people are going to be looking for every reason to not invest. They only need one to not, and they need every reason to. So, you know, resiliency in the face of that is pretty damn critical, and not being deterred by, a lot of people poking holes into your idea or your business.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's a really important message for people to hear. And I think so often we see the finished product, right? Whether it's a product, like a physical product or a business, and we just kind of assume that that thing, was like an easy road. And really, there's often a pretty lengthy story, and it involved, a lot of faith and patience and being able to be resilient. And something I love asking my guests who have founded companies is, kind of during that experience, I can imagine, from having my own experiences of building things and having to still be a functional human in the world while holding space for all that in my brain. Like, I imagine it takes some self-care tools. Either that or we learn things the hard way. And for you, what are some things that maybe either that you found really helpful for kind of continuing to show up in a as positive a mindset as possible, or trust that things are going to work out, or on the flip side, things that you might have done differently, or advice that you would give your earlier self?
Yeah. Well, two things. One, I think it's all about the community and the support system that you had around you. So for me, I was really lucky that I had business partners who I love and who I'm really close with, and we supported one another with, you know, Evan and Signy. They're both my college best friends, so we've known each other for a very long time, and we've supported each other a lot through the ups and downs, I guess. So maybe I guess the theme is not so much what you're doing, but who you're doing it with and how you're doing it. And thankfully, I was really lucky to have a great support system with them. Additionally, outside of HiYo, my girlfriend, then fiance, then wife, as this whole thing has continued to change, she's just been such a rock. So she allowed me to work around the clock and support me, and know that I wasn't going to be quite as maybe present as I would like to be, and because I was so hyper focused on trying to build this thing. So I think having partners and having family members that understand the vision and understand what it is you're trying to do, and maybe they're patient with your just however you're showing up in that way, whether you're like shorter tempered or you're not there because you're just in the office the entire time, like whatever it is, or you're just all consumed by this thing. I was really lucky to have a great support system in that sense. For me, I also stopped drinking, which that was very helpful for me. Obviously, I come from a family with alcohol issues. For me, it was just like I can't be the partner both in business and in my love life. Like I just wasn't going to be able to show up as the partner that I wanted to be, juggling all of that with having off days of being hungover or anything along those lines. I felt like I needed to be sharp. I needed to be my best. So that was also really helpful for me. Beyond that, I think it's not so much of a practice, but maybe it is. It's being very assured of what you're working for, right? And continuing to remind yourself towards that. I think working hard can be really exhausting, or you can kind of get your energy from it of like, oh man, it feels really good to work hard at something that you care about a lot. And being lucky enough to be so connected to the vision and the mission of what we were trying to create felt like, yeah, I'll run through a million brick walls here. It's not as exhausting as it maybe otherwise would be. And the challenging moments of, production runs going awry, or funds drying up, or, stock outs or whatever, it makes it a little bit easier to handle those bumps and bruises when you just have no cognitive dissonance between what it is you want to be doing and what you're lucky enough to wake up every day. So
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I feel like a lot of our audience will really appreciate hearing that. It's, it's a, I feel like doing something like this is not for the faint of heart, but then it is also can be really incredible to see what you're able to do and help people with.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something in all of us as humans when you're able to create something out of nothing. There is something that really is a special experience, and it doesn't matter like how big or small that is. Like you can feel it when I like to write poetry. Like I get very happy just knowing that I've created something, and it's not even something that I'm sharing with a bunch of people. There's just that feeling happens, and then that to a degree gets magnified when it's something as large as HiYo has been able to become, and it's something that I think positively affects a lot of people. It can be a very motivating experience. So to me, I think it's if you're feeling that call to create something yourself, whether that's a business or not, you know, listen to that voice because it's certainly been a fulfilling thing for my experience.
And I really appreciate you mentioning whether it's a business or not, because I think sometimes it is very easy to get caught up in this mindset that we have to be doing things that are quote unquote productive, right? Or that other people can like qualify for us. And I've written, I've been compulsively writing since I was like 7 years old, and I don't publish poetry under my real name anymore, really just like nonfiction. But there is something about just creating without the pressure for it to be something. And when something you create, happens to be a thing in the world that other people are aware of and use, like that's great too. But I appreciate that you shared that creating just to create also has a place.
Absolutely. I mean, not to go off on kind of maybe a little bit of a weird tangent, but I think we're in this age where we're so heavy on the consumption and really little on the creation. Like every day there's, you pick up your phone and there's so much to just consume. And we've gotten out of whack or out of balance and how much we ourselves are actually creating. And I think that, that sense of pride of when you do create something, I think that can be really motivating and just fulfilling. So I'm a big fan of uh, people trying to take the time, whatever it is that they want to try to create and foster that. So
Yeah, we're here for it. We always get weird on this podcast. So no, I'm there for it. I want to go back to something you were sharing earlier about just that experience of adjusting to drinking less while still being social and going out. And what advice might you give somebody who's newly navigating that? They're in a place where they're starting to drink less alcohol, or maybe they're completely no longer drinking alcohol, whatever it might be. Like anything that would be helpful for that person.
yeah. So one, I think everyone's experience is way different. Like each one is unique. So I don't want to anything that I say is just informed from my specific experience. It's not like a one size fits all, but just how it was for me. I tried to minimize the idea of like I'm not saying I'm never going to drink ever again, and it's not going to be this big scary thing. It was just for me. I was like, I'm gonna I'm gonna not drink, and I'm gonna see how long it goes, and I'm gonna keep not drinking. So that to me felt easier. I also would say for the people that if you are looking to drink less, get specific around that. If you're not drinking, if it's just like I'm not gonna drink at all, that is a pretty clear goal. If you're saying I'm gonna drink less, like I would try to get a little bit more definitive on that. And then once you do, share that with the people who are close to you, who can keep you accountable, support you, and make that easier for you. Because if it is ingrained, if it's heavily ingrained in your life, that can feel like a big moment of, ah, shit, something's missing. Like you're pulling something out. There is a hole there, right? Like so many people's weekends, maybe even more than that, revolve around a consumption behavior where that's the entertainment, right? And then you take that out and you feel like something's missing. My encouragement would be then to say, like, don't think so much about what you're taking out, but what you're making space for. And if there's something better that you can fill that time with. For me specifically, like it was my company and it was building this thing. So I poured myself completely into that. And then I really love golf. And I would just reward myself with really early Saturday morning activities. Like usually it would be golfing or surfing that I wouldn't enjoy as much if I was hungover from drinking on Friday night. And it felt in some ways almost like a spiritual experience of those crisp morning airs, of smelling that in my nose and breathing that in. And feeling like this is a gift that I'm giving myself because I made this choice, this harder choice to not drink. And I wouldn't get to do this if I was still drinking. So that having those little reward, I don't know, moments, I guess, is important too. So hopefully some of that's helpful. But yeah, that was what worked for me.
Thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate you highlighting that every person's journey is different, and what works for one person could be different from what works from somebody else. Though sometimes it can be helpful to hear someone else's story and get
Yep.
some ideas of what things to maybe consider exploring. So it's really, thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, and I just think like not drinking, it doesn't need to be so intimidating, right? Like the concept of saying that you're going sober or saying that like you're never drinking again, that can be maybe scary to some people. It sounds like a huge commitment. And, for certain people, I think that you have to do that. Like I know a lot of them and like cutting it out full cold turkey. Maybe you need to go into recovery. Maybe you go to AA. These things that have a lot of support and have a strong track record of helping a decent amount of people go that way. But for a lot of people, it's this feeling in the back of their head that, yeah, I really wish that I would stop drinking or I could really drink less. It doesn't need to be such a daunting task. It can be as simple as like, just try drinking a little bit less during the week. And if you do that, like on those nights, be intentional with your time and think about how you want to fill it. Like, okay, yeah, I'm going to stop, I'm going to drink less and I'm going to get like really good at cooking. Like that's going to be my night where I really focus on what I want to cook and I'm going to get so excited about what I'm cooking. Or, game nights, or it's a new hobby that you want to get into. Like there's so many things that we already brought up, like they can be more productive. And I don't mean to, everything doesn't have to be productive, but enjoyable or fulfilling, I guess, than just the ease of consuming alcohol. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like, how do you want to feel? How do you want to spend your time? And I think that when we open up to new experiences, we might discover things that are really exciting to us and really light us up that we wouldn't have found out about.
yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I can show you what my life was before cutting out alcohol, and I can show you what it looked like after. And it's like, I'm like happily married with a successful company, and I'm like pretty happy and cut down on weight. And it's there's just a lot of things that maybe a small decision can ultimately lead to. Whatever the opposite of like a slippery slope is, like like one small choice can really influence a lot of other positive things. So
And I tell my clients that all the time. Those little changes that you build on over time, like that becomes your new healthy habits, your new life, the new things that feel good that, in one time might have seemed totally unattainable. But then one day you look back and you're like, wow, I got where I never even thought I could get. This is amazing.
yeah, absolutely.
So for you, I know this is like a really hard question for any business owner, but do you have any favorite products that you guys have come up with? Any favorite flavors or concoctions that, you're like, this is the best?
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is it kind of like switches back and forth. I don't know why, but I just go into different chapters of which ones I like the most. All of them are the same. So we have 4 different flavors right now. All are 30 calories, all have the same blend of adaptogens and nootropics in each can. So the same functionality. It's really just choosing which flavor you enjoy the most. We've got peach mango, watermelon lime, blackberry lemon, and strawberry guava right now on the market. Strawberry guava is the newest flavor. It might be recency bias. That one's my favorite right now. I think it's just like it's sweet but not too sweet. It's super refreshing, light, crisp, and just I think the thing that I'm most proud of is just that it just tastes like a wild strawberry and then kind of like a sweet little guava twist at the end. So I'm really proud of how it doesn't have like an artificial flavor that sometimes like strawberries can really get that feeling. The Jolly Rancher kind of taste of strawberries. So yeah, that's my favorite right now. Do you know when this podcast is supposed to actually go live? Because I can tell you either the flavor that we're gonna be launching at the end of this month, but I don't want to like announce it now because
Yeah, no. So this will be live this winter. So it'll already. I'm looking at like probably March most likely. So it should
okay,
be out.
great. Well, then our newest flavor, passion fruit tangerine, is definitely my favorite that we've created. That launches on January 31st, probably. So by the time that you are listening to this podcast, that will be out. And yeah, I'm so damn proud. To geek out about it for a second, it's like this this kind of like sour flavor profile, which I know sounds weird for a beverage, but you get it on the sides of your tongue a little bit, but it's still refreshing and light enough. And then it has this tangerine sweetness at the end that, yeah, I'm just so proud. And it's really bold flavor for a 30-calorie beverage with all of those adaptogens. It's a huge accomplishment from our team. So I'm very excited for people to try it.
Amazing. And yeah, we'll be sure to link to the site on in the show notes so people can check it out and figure out where they can get some for themselves.
Cool.
And you guys have done work with collaborations with like festivals and stuff as well, right? And
Oh yeah.
venues.
Yeah. So we have a exclusive partnership with Insomniac, which is the largest events promoter of primarily electronic dance music in America. They put on the biggest festival in the country, which is Electric Daisy Carnival in Las Vegas, which is like a 3-day like kind of rave that goes all night. It's pretty wild. But yeah, we're the exclusive alcohol alternative in all of their concerts, venues, festivals across the country. And it's been awesome to see, bringing almost wellness to a occasion that probably historically you wouldn't associate with that. Has been so much fun. And it's been really cool and really, frankly, surprising to see how much people have caught on to it and really love the fact that we're there and we're available in that occasion. It's been really fun.
That's awesome. And that is such a great feeling when you are someone who is not drinking that night or doesn't drink and you go somewhere and they have actually really good non-alcoholic options. It's like still kind of like an exciting thing.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds so lame, but I get so pumped up when it's not like, oh, I got something more than soda water or like a soda. Like if I'm ordering a soda, it's like I feel like I have to sit at the kids' table, you know? But when there is some optionality, I totally geek out about it. So I'm excited that we get to recreate that for some people as well.
So, okay, a question I get a lot from clients when we're talking about just beverage, like alternatives to alcohol. And maybe you can answer this for our listeners. I know I've interviewed founders who do non-alcoholic wine or de-alcoholized wine. And a question that comes up a lot in this space is the cost. I get a lot of questions like people want to know why non-alcoholic products are sometimes just as expensive, if not more so, than their alcoholic counterparts.
Yeah,
And I was curious, like, what you would, if you could shed some light on that for our audience.
totally. Yeah, and that's one of the things that like we are trying very hard to counteract with HiYo, but it's a kind of a complex this will be a somewhat complex answer. So hopefully it's comprehensive in the response. But so alcohol products, if you're looking at the alcohol mimics, so like a wine, de-alcoholized wine or non-alcoholic beer, they are being made the same way as their alcoholic counterparts. And then it's an additional system, whatever specific thing it is with wine or beer, to de-alcoholize them. So it's an additional step that takes more time and oftentimes messes with the flavor. And then they have to change the flavor afterwards. So it's like oftentimes like 3 or 4 more steps to do that. And that just ultimately ends up making things more expensive. For us, HiYo, if you're comparing HiYo to like, let's say a White Claw or a High Noon, like White Claw, that's fermented malt. That is such an inexpensive ingredient to include. We are harvesting adaptogens and nootropics from all across the country that are the most bioavailable products that we can find, and they're all organic. So when you're looking at ashwagandha and lion's mane mushrooms and L-theanine from green tea extract, like it's way more expensive than the ingredients that are needed to, create a White Claw with all artificial flavoring and fermented malt, right? Additionally, beverage is such a game where volume dictates the price so much. Like you have such benefits when you have economies of scale in beverage, where it's really expensive to produce a little bit and it's really inexpensive to produce a lot. So in order to get to those lower price points, you have to become significantly more popular and you have to produce a lot more. So we're working on that. We're trying to get our price even lower. I think we're at least right now priced in moderately accessible, but we don't want price point to ever be the detractor from people living healthier lifestyles. So it's very much in our crosshairs of what we want to try to achieve, and we're working pretty tirelessly to reduce our cogs without that's cost of goods sold without cutting corners of the ingredients that we're using.
That is a great explanation. Thank you for sharing that. No, I think it's also helpful. I think, something this comes up a lot in my work when we're talking about why certain food costs more, like why quote unquote healthy food costs more than unhealthy food. And that could be a whole podcast like series, like in and of itself. We won't get into that today, but I think you are having to take into account all the things that go into the creation of that product. And also, but, again, we don't want people to be having to decide between healthful habits or making healthful choices and, surviving financially. It's a tough one, but that's, thank you for shedding some light on that and explaining how that works for our audience. Cause I found that when people understand a little better the why behind that, it helps to give them the information to make more informed decisions and to feel more empowered that way.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I price is a big thing that we want to get it as low as possible, but it's it's like everything in life. You got to find the balance that works for you. And for us, it's how do we provide the most bioavailable, like organic, high quality ingredients and get a price point that is accessible enough for, the everyday person to be able to purchase HiYo and not feel financially strained from that. So it's something that we continually focus on.
And I wanted to talk to you about trends. This is something, again, like I know podcasts should be evergreen, but like I feel like that's changed a bit over the last few years. But as we're here recording in early 2025, what are some trends in the industry that you're excited about?
Well, specifically for non-alc, I will say the category is booming in terms of a lot of new entrants coming in, which I think is awesome. There's clearly a large desire for people to drink less and having more optionality there. I think it's pretty cool that the Surgeon General just came out with stating that their desire to let's have like a health warning on labels of alcohol and the risks associated with consumption, attaching it to 5 known risks of cancer, which that does that's cool that they are trying to make that help people be more informed in the negative effects of it. So those trends I think are pretty powerful. I think one of the things that in terms of trends that feel very good to me are just the brands that are very authentic in their story. Like Siete is one that comes to mind for me of just such a beautiful, authentic brand of a family that resonates with a lot of people. Like it's a family run company, and then they were able to scale and sell. I don't remember what it was, but the company just got purchased, and they have been able to create such a massive impact of providing these like healthier alternatives to snack foods and tortillas that it's pretty cool that they were able to do that in a way that felt authentic. So I think the trends that you're going to see are more and more brands trying to showcase the people behind them and showcase the missions of why brands exist as opposed to just being so product forward.
I love that. I have a joke. I have a dark past in like, slam poetry and storytelling. And so I love stories. Like that's like one of my favorite things when it comes to the business world and branding is just, I love hearing the story.
Yeah. I mean, we all love stories. Like that's been what human beings like that's why we're on podcasts. That's why like people like to hear about things. They like to spin stories. They like to be entertained in that way. And we were writing our own stories and keeping ourselves entertained a lot more in the past. And then now it's a little bit more like passive consumption. And that's why I love the idea of like continuing to create. And like that's probably the thing that I get most inspired by with HiYo of getting to continue that narrative and continue that way to tell the story and hopefully tell a story that inspires people to live a healthier, happier life and getting to tell that story on podcasts like this. So
Amazing. So, George, I have one more question for you. So actually, two questions. One, if people want to check out HiYo, how can they do that?
yeah, so check us out at drinkhio.com or at Drink HiYo on any of the socials. And you can also now, as of November, find us on Amazon if that's where you like to shop as well.
Awesome. And we will link to all that stuff in the show notes. So my real,
I probably
yeah,
should also say, sorry, one other thing. And if you prefer to purchase us in store, you can go on to Drink HiYo, go onto our store locator page and just see where we're at in your region. That's an easy way to find us in store as well.
perfect. Okay. So my real last question for you. So this is a question I ask all my guests because there's so many different answers. And also too, our answers for ourselves are always evolving and changing. But my question for you is today, at this point in time, what does healthy living mean to you?
Does healthy living mean to me? I think it's living a balanced life. And what I mean by that is being intentional and thinking about how you are spending your time, what you're consuming, both like in your nutrition and in your entertainment or whatever, how much you are prioritizing different people in your life. I think when you are living a healthy life, things feel like they're in balance. There's a healthy level of moderation. There's a healthy level of, I don't know, synchronicity. And that can look different in different chapters of your life, of what you define as balanced. And that's what I think is this continual challenge that life throws at you every day, damn near, like from day to day, balance can look a little bit different. And I think it's this chase of this impossible perfection to living a perfectly balanced life that is also really inspiring and really enjoyable. That even though you're never going to get like a perfectly balanced life, the pursuit of it is what's worth it. And that makes all the difference. And that's a worthy worthy endeavor to strive towards. So.
I love that. That totally speaks to me. So, George, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been great having you as a guest.
Jess, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, thank you so much.
And for all you guys who are out there listening, thank you as always for your time and energy. I so appreciate you being here. I know there are millions of podcasts you could listen to, so it means a lot to me that you'd spend some time here on this one. If you like what you hear, like, share, subscribe. Feel free to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. They do matter and help me continue to bring you great guests like George today. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you for listening to Drama-Free Healthy Living with Jess Cording. We'll see you next time.
And just one more thing. I may be a dietitian, but I'm not your dietitian. The information in this podcast is meant for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any medical condition. It is also not a replacement for individual counseling. Always check with your healthcare provider for questions related to your own health and well-being.